It's good to have you here. There's been, as we expect, many polls out this morning. The HHB poll says 2219 for the PNM. The NACTA poll says 21 for the PP, 18 for the PNM. The CAPSU poll. Well, I didn't, I just stayed, rather instead move to the SBS poll because that's been generating a whole lot of excitement. And they are representing 36 seats will go to the PNM and 38 will go to the incumbent. So depending on your bias, you will accept or reject polls. I ask you here this morning because of your expertise in understanding this political science that we are talking about. Have we been suckered into a comfort zone or have we been led down a dark alley by pollsters is my first question as I welcome you.
Well, that's a good question, man. We said this stuff for about 15 seconds. The audio went blank.
The audio went blank for a moment. Let me repeat. We have varying polls giving different results. At the end of the day, I quoted the numbers coming out of the HHB, 2219 for the PNM. The NACTA poll says 18 for the PNM, 21 for the PP. The SBS says 36 for the PNM and 38 for the incumbents. And so you probably got the last part of my question. Depending on your bias, I said we will accept them or reject them. Are we being led down a comfort zone or in a dark hole by the pollsters?
Now let's regard the pollsters as professionals, right?
Yes.
If we do that, if they make mistakes after the elections on Monday, we will know the kinds of mistakes that they made. But let's not be too quick to say that they're fraudsters. Let's give them the benefit of any doubt we may have and say that these are professionals working in a science that is not exact.
Professor, just a favor, please. If it is possible, do you have me on a speakerphone? Is it possible then you can take the receiver because I'm having an echo coming from the acoustics in your room and I would greatly appreciate that. And one of the reasons why the question about the pollsters come in play for obvious reasons, as you know. Recent polls, election polls in Israel and the UK have raised issues for pollsters who got the results horrendously wrong. Changes, for instance, those who are saying one thing to the pollsters and getting in the polling booth and doing something else. That's a variable that hitherto was not factored in. And folks are saying we could be looking at a deja vu situation here in Trinidad and Tobago.
Yes, that's possible. But we aren't dealing with possibilities there. We have to deal with the information we have. And we have to know the information that we have. We have to know, for example, the samples used with respect to where the sample came from, how representative it is. We got to know how the methodology they're using to interpret the data that they got. So I don't deal with possibilities because there would be no point. Anything is possible.
Yes.
But I do deal with probabilities, and I do give people the benefit of the doubt in the first place. It's not an exact science. But what the polls do show is that, on the one hand, the race is close, right?
Yes.
And on the other, either the PNM or the UNC stroke partnership can win. I say it that way because some polls are giving the edge in a close race to one party or the other. Right. So what we must be able to say here is that this can happen based on the polling figures we have. That's what we can say. Having said that, we've got to move on now and ask ourselves, how can that be given the developments over the country, in the country over the last 5 years? Now, there are incumbents, and they have to stand by their record, which they say they are, by their record, right?
Well said.
Yes, I mean, the UNC and the partnership, and if you wish to personalize it, or personify it, Mrs. Kamala Prasad Besessa has said she has done things over the last 5 years. The PNM were in opposition, and therefore, they have no questions to answer with respect to the last 5 years, except in so far as they did their job of opposition in a particular way. And of course, people can always go back before 2010 because the PNM was in government before 2010. So the question is whether the PNM's record pre-2010 is going to be a factor in the voters' mind. I hardly think that there are many voters who are going to be concerned about that record. To see, I think, that Keith Rowley came into the leadership of the PNM after Manning at his post-2010 and has come in with even took steps to modernize, to use their word, the PNM Constitution. Just saying, right? And so that if you understand what has happened here is that the UNC and the partnership made Rowley the person and issue.
That is a direction that was taken. That is something to me that's an import, because that has happened many other places, particularly in the United States, where you make it a personal situation, and the results of that is something else. Now, Professor Winford James is my guest here this morning. I want to get into your analysis of the situation, but if you will forgive me, I want to stay in the area of the polls, because that is yes, because it's consuming us all this morning. The area of the polls that we are talking about is the area of landlines and cell phones. Phones being used for polling, when the majority of the population now are moving away from landline phones. Of course, we know when you use land phones, you're more than likely going to check out the bona fide status of the person being a voter and so on. But with the advent of cell phones, a lot of the people who may be polling are being missed. Is that not a safe assumption?
Well, remember that even if they miss some of them, the polls by telephone also say that they have a certain number that they caught. So that if, for example, the last poll by SBS caught some 1,200 persons, right? This SBS pollster is saying to us that 1,200 persons represent the electorate. That's what they're saying. And we must ask ourselves, in what way does that figure represent the population? And now we can get very technical about this, Rennie. And I don't know that your viewers, your listeners want that level of technicality, but I'm just saying, here is a population of 1.5 million. What makes 1,200 persons representative of that population? We can ask that and answer that question as well. Not only that, remember too that our constituencies are not homogeneous. They're different. They have their own individual characteristics. And one of the failings of the polls, in my judgment, this time around, is that very little polling was done in individuated constituencies. In other words, you want to know what is happening in Toko, Sangani Toko. You want to know what's happening in Tobago East, per se. You want to know what's happening in Digo Martin West, per se. And you have had hardly any polls that have individuated the electorate in terms of constituencies and gone into the different constituencies or called your telephone sample in relation to constituencies and the calls in relation to. But you don't see that kind of individuation. Well, you might say that they have done it and just is not reporting it. Well, that makes sense.
Precisely.
No, they're not. And how, in fact, the polls in relation to San Fernando West, the numbers are divided up among the
In addition to the articulated idiosyncrasies you referred to, there is the area also of the number of rejected calls, because the number you reject, you may reach out to a whole lot of people, but if you reach out to 25 people, 20 rejected you, and you base your results on what you got a feedback on, that may not necessarily be accurately representative.
And especially if you say overall that there is a margin of error, that is a generic margin of error of some 3%.
Yeah.
If it's generalized like that, you don't know what has happened in individual constituencies. In other words, the pollster reports ask us to believe in the fidelity, the honesty, the professionalism of the pollster. Take your word for it.
Yeah.
But then we can't form a good enough opinion on your sense of things, except you give us all the information.
I follow clearly, which leads to the question, is there an accepted representative sample used as a benchmark? And if so, how do we know it is being followed? Is precisely what you're saying.
Well, yes. And I'm also saying that the pollsters must present that information to the public. Let's say that it has been found throughout the world that a certain percentage of a population then you must say that to us, that if you have numbers, if you have an electorate, well, let's say a country that has a population of 1.3, 1.5, and if your electorate, let's say, is some 900,000 of them, don't know, then you must say that for such a population, this is the sample you must have. And then you must also talk about the individual differences across the electorate. You know, the demographic configuration of the electorate. And that's why you see some people, if you study the polling over time in the Caribbean, many have not used, by the way, telephone polling. And many people have gone into the common concourses, the areas where people congregated.
That's right.
Like at the market on a Sunday, you know, or sports meeting, and they interview people in those big gathering places, gathering grounds, because they want to reach as many people as possible. And they, of course, want to treat randomization in the way it should be. Randomization, some sample of the kind I'm talking about, the information.
In looking for a general understanding, Professor, of the methodology used here, one of the things that I think came up with the SBS, the SBS poll, dealt with the area of not just where you are expected to vote, but the expectation for the next winner of the election as a margin used as a parameter. That, to me, I found vague at best and disturbing.
But I don't quite understand what you just said there.
I'm sorry, let me repeat that. The SBS survey is saying that what he's using a new methodology that allows him to ask the voter, who do you expect to win the election? And then there was a tally for that sort of expectation as against where the voter is going to vote. That to me was just not just ambiguous, I found it disturbing.
Yeah, it need not be either of those things. It could be that that's a question put in there for his own purposes and for the purposes of some of the readers of his poll. Because it can be an interesting poll. The question is, what conclusions can you arrive at on the basis of the answers to that question? Because you're asking me about my expectation, who will win. Now that could be an interesting research question. But it's not the answer that you're going to get to that question are not going to be usable as a basis for predicting who will win. Because expectations are one thing. Intention to vote is another. Because it's just some polls have questions which are posed to gather information in relation to some kind of research purpose. Now, not all the purposes of a poll are for predicting the outcome of an election. Just want to say that. So we have to pick those questions in amongst the questions of a poll which directly refer to or have a bearing on who or which party will win. So we cannot take all the questions and give them equal merit for.
Understood.
Something to say as well before you push on to, that's assuming you're going to go on to.
No, I am going to stay with the pollsters for a while, but please elaborate.
I was going to say, if you hear a little muffling, is that I put a little bit of bread into my mouth, Mr. B.
Good. No, sir, please go ahead.
I was saying here, especially as I think the last result you gave me, the result you gave me of the last poll, I'm going to say here, that if you poll a sample of 1,200 and you ask who are you going to vote for, and 48% of the persons polled say we are going to vote for the PNM, and 52% say we are going to vote for the UNC. Let's examine how to use information like that. First of all, is that information sufficient to say that the UNC will win because 2% more than the PNM, right? Percent in fact, it's 4, right? 48 and it's 2% more, yes. 2%, 52, yes. 48, 4% more what am I saying? Yes, you cannot say that because UNC has a majority, right, of those people that they will win the election. Because that is not how the seats in the country structured.
Indeed, it's the overall vote, but you're not dealing with the seats that actually make the difference, yes.
Say this in support of that point. In 1981, you remember the ONR?
The ONR, of course.
Were you here?
Of course, yes. I remember very well.
The ONR polled a massive 95,000 votes and won no seat.
Mm-hmm.
Remember in connection with that, George Chambers saying,
Not memorialized by the mighty Lord Kitchener, equally, yes, indeed.
and the UNC polled a mere 68,000 votes and won, I think it's about 12 seats.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how do you think that is possible?
The popular vote is not going to determine the particular seats you're winning, which is in fact what is your representation extracted from. Mm-hmm.
Most people voted in a generic way for a party that does not help us to see who will win.
Right. I got you.
An indicator of.
Indeed, the voice you're hearing, in case you just joined us, is Professor Winford James. He is a political scientist, a commentator at large. He's written many papers in languages and education in the Caribbean, which is an area I may invite him back for at another time. But right now we're talking about polls because we awake this morning, and that's all that we're reading all around us. That's what everybody is talking about. Polls, they say, simply a snapshot in time. My question is, against that backdrop, why do we take polls so seriously?
What people, first of all, is the most scientific instrument we have in order to know about the group. Can you say that?
Yes, it is. Mm-hmm.
You cannot do your own individual observations and generalize from them. See?
No, you really can't do it because your circle is going to determine your results. Mm-hmm.
You have to spread the resource base, right, to get your information. And so you're going to go around the country and have a sense of the population. And I'm now going to sample that population, and in our case, sample the population in particular constituencies, right, and come up with an overall number. And the samples in the different constituencies might not be at the same size. In other words, you might have a smaller sample, let's say, to be where you want with smaller,
Yes.
more homogeneous constituencies in the country. So you have to have a differentiation of samples. And overall, you might come up with what has been agreed over time. And people are saying, the sample doesn't have to be big because groups are not individually differentiated. We don't have 1 million persons with 1 million different
Can I
ideas.
beg you a favor, my friend?
Those
You just bring me
persons
some
are
hot
grouped
water
into
out of the kitchen for
communities
this
into
place.
different ways of thinking. And
Just
therefore,
water.
we can have smaller numbers
Just the hot water from the
because these numbers represent groups, if you follow. Not only that, but we must also look at other kinds of factors that may be important in representing the vote. Once you know the demographic structure of the overall electorate, then you have to ask yourself, what about the gender concern? How many women versus how many men? That will be informed, of course, would be informed by the overall.
Most poignant indeed, because again, in the full disclosure area, you are hard pressed to see that representation. They would say they picked up 1,000 people, but nobody is telling me the ethnicity, and nobody is telling me the sex and so on. So the gender, I see clearly what you're saying.
In fact, very often they handle the ethnicity by saying, and when I say ethnicity, really I mean the race, because ethnicity is different from race. But they might say race. May I say that there are 33% of the respondents are Hindus and 32% of the respondents are Afros. They are mixed and so on. That's generalizing at the holistic level, at the top level. when you go down into the particular constituencies, we don't have a sense of the racial proportion. They don't give us it. Not that they haven't done it, I'm not accusing them of that. Saying we do not know that they have done it because they have not presented that information.
And all we are saying for us to have full confidence in it is that it would be good. It is very useful that we have that information. Politicos argue all the time that polls sway voters. Are you an adherent to that thinking?
Well, there are different kinds of people in the world, and there are some people who are a little more gullible than others. And that depends, of course, on their experience and their education. Now, a fellow like me is not going to be easily swayed by where polls say elections are headed. Because we are a little more difficult to persuade. We need to have more information, better analysis, and so on. So we notice, and I suppose if I were a political leader or political, I don't know, somebody high up in a party, I might want to say, look, you see what this is saying? Let us take steps to counter it or to promote it once our interests are indicated favored by that kind of result. But yes, I'm saying no. I don't know that the polls are influencing me. The way I think in terms of understanding what is happening, changes occur, and that is where the benefit for me lies. I'm a very difficult man to persuade because of where I've reached in academics. You can't just come. That's why I'm talking to you like this.
And hence the reason I asked you if you think I should have, maybe I inartfully stated that. I should have asked you instead, do you think the general populace, the electorate, in the main from any area of knowledge and resource are in fact swayed by polls? Maybe that's the way I should more specifically frame the question.
But I would say people among the general population are swayed. But this is panic now. This is panic and fear. And to a certain extent, ignorance. But this is directly related to how much of a thinker you are, how reflective you are, how well you understand these things. There are lots of people who don't listen to the polls at all, who have their own sense from their own little places in life, and who have a sense, and they will say, we are on the ground, so we know. And they're going to say, based on what I have observed, what I've experienced, what I've heard, going to say this is the way to go.
I am going to move this conversation into apathy among voters in a moment, but I want to conclude on this question. On the area of these polls, just close down my poll situation here, because sometimes I feel I am being polled by the polls, but that's a different conversation. On the reverse, there are many who prefer that parties subscribe to bad polls as a way of inspiring their voter turnout.
Yes, I think that is true. And parties, if they do their own polls and the results seem to not favor them, will hide the polls from the public. In other words, it's something that they manipulate because it's self-interest. In this case, empirical self-interest, because there is a party. They're going to react to the polls in terms of strategies. And when we see their strategies, we must wonder whether, in fact, they especially change in strategies. We're going to say, they were doing this thing all the time, all of a sudden they have changed. Did they change because they have come into new knowledge? Knowledge come from, because parties, as I say, commission pollsters to do work for them and will release the information if it puts them in good light.
That is the kind of thing we heard happened here in this election, but that's a different conversation. The good thing about this is that the Polling Council in the UK announced it's establishing an independent inquiry to look at causes and look at a format, look at a benchmark that pollsters should use, and maybe that's something we should be looking at. Okay, my political analyst is with me, and he, of course, is Professor Winford James. Let us go straight into that area, the question of apathy, because while it overlaps from the whole polling issue, I just want to take it on the broader sense, because everywhere we hear of these large numbers of undecided. And I don't know if you agree, if you subscribe, that there is in fact a large number of people who are undecided, and whether you reconcile that with the general apathy in the system that we practice right now.
Well,
Generally, I am not taking part. I don't care. It is none of my business. The jaded electorate is what way I'm running here.
More and more people have been motivated, fired up in respect of these elections. You know?
Well,
or people who don't care. Or who, if they care, feel that elections are not the way to solve our problems. There's just hardcore. We have had a hardcore over time. And my favorite example, I can't name the church, but there are churches, not religions, but churches that do not vote. Their members do not vote. They're instructed not to vote because their government is not of this world. Or perhaps their government is of this world, but it's a hidden, silent, invisible government. In other words, they are not part of the world's scheme of things.
That sounds like a whole different talk show, but go ahead. Yes.
People who do not vote, right? And there are others who say, well, look, I don't think any of the major contending parties are suitable. There are so many problems with each of them that I am not. That is one reason, by the way, why small new parties don't go anywhere. Because they are entrenched belief systems lock people into a particular way. It's unlike what happens in other parts of the world, you know. In some parts of the world, a fellow can start a party 3 months after the new government has been in power and win. You know, if you go back, if you go to Greece, where they have this big problem of debt servicing, right?
Yeah, we'll be.
Then, of course, Greece is being bailed out by the EU. And the Prime Minister had to resign because his party rebelled against him because he was going against promises he made in the campaign. But he can go form a party in 3 months' time and win an election. That can't happen in Trinidad and Tobago. Or let's say it hasn't happened yet. So I'm going back to your apathy question and to say that, yes, you have, I don't know that is apathy as much as it is just ideological rejection. But people don't care. Whatever they do, right, is not going to. What they do is not going to turn the political leaders of the major parties. So they have opted out, and they will take whatever scraps come their way. So in other words, it is something that is very complex, the complex fabric. But there are definitely some people who are undecided, which is not to say that they are apathetic. And those who are undecided, for reasons I just gave, and there are others who are saying, well, I genuinely can't make the call here. Now let's factoring immediately into our conversation what Timothy Hammer-Smith has been saying. Spoil your vote.
I'm only going to groan on that, Professor. Go ahead, please.
But it's relevant to the undecided question. He's saying, look, none of the parties that have offered themselves are good enough. They're not promoting our democracy. They are not seeking the general interest of the population. Yes? Not the UNC, not the PNM, not the COP, not the ILP, not one of them. Now this is coming from a man who was the president of the Senate and who was there because of an elected party. You know, you can't be president of the Senate except you are appointed by the party.
Indeed.
And also, because of his position in the hierarchy, he could act as president of the country and did. It all has an electoral base, so this guy benefited from that. And now, first of all, he formed a party of pick up sides, he and some others, and that effort disintegrated because, you know, it could not fly, not in the opportunistic way in which it was formed, not as close as to the election as we knew it was. This guy had gone on the platform of Kamala Bissau and endorsed her. And now he says that he is wants us to spoil our votes. Now, he does not get into the details of what percentage of spoiled votes would be a basis for whatever. He doesn't go that far. How are we going to use that result to promote our democracy? He does not get into the specific details of how the no-ter vote could in fact promote democracy in the country. But then he is undecided, I don't know if he's undecided, but certainly if we follow him, and we must be suspicious of what he's saying, but if we follow him, then what he's saying is that he's not voting for either the UNC or the PNM. Now, if he doesn't vote for them, where is the country going to be? I'm complaining here that I wish that I didn't have to raise him. You wrote. I'm complaining here because it does not really offer us a way out in so far.
Yes, the way it was presented is disquieting to me because it sounds as though I am seeking leverage. And since I couldn't get my way one way or the other, and since the force imploded, why don't I just now go and show you all what power I actually have by spoiling the vote?
I find it more sinister than that.
Please.
Could be an agent for a party.
Indeed, I did think of that too.
Be an agent. I'm not saying he is an agent, but operating with my normal suspiciousness. I'm saying because I don't see enough sense in that, then I go to, I use what they call Occam's razor. Use the easiest comes to your mind. And the easiest thing and the most, the simplest thing is that perhaps he's an agent for one of the major parties.
That is not even far-fetched, because if one were to take that to its extension, or to some extension anyway, you're saying that you have to look at where the new energy is coming from, which party has generated enough new energy, and if you can now pull the shades on the light coming in on that, then in fact you are serving your interests, are you not?
And I don't think his interest is his own interest, his own individual interest. I think he represents...
And being nice. You will allow me to be nice. I'm trying to be nice. Professor Winford James is my guest this morning. We are having brunch from 107.7. We spend extensive time dealing with the polls. Now we're dealing with where we are. This area of the personal attack is something that is kind of new, the extent to which we have seen it. Are we importing a system that's inimical to the best ideals we aspire to here in Trinidad and Tobago by getting into this total character assassination approach, oblivious of the other 40 seats? Instead, let's just go with the leader and shoot him. Maybe I should better phrase that, and attack him. Thank you.
Do we need to import that behavior?
Yes.
I don't think we do.
I concur.
Yeah, our history has demeaned leaders over time. The leaders have had to arise out of our ranks because of the most grievous social conditions in which the group has lived. Slavery. What is worse than slavery that has happened to us? Understand?
Indeed, I very clearly.
Of course, strict indentureship was less worse than slavery, but had its
horrific anyway. Yes.
Has its features as well. So people arise and they represent a group, a band of thinking, and so they become the target of negative attention among the very people that person is trying to assist. Yeah? That has been with us, right? And it has been with us in all our politics. Now, what has not happened in a long time, let me, before I go to that, to say that Dr. William was vilified when he put down his bucket, as he said. He was vilified because he was representing new thinking. There were a lot of colonialists, people who were loyal to the empire, to the British Empire, right? Who could not accept an indigenous, homegrown creation, a new. And so Williams suffered in that way. After Williams, we had George Chambers. George Chambers was vilified for his lack of high academic.
I remember very clearly.
This was a smart fellow, and this was a humble guy, and this was, if you remember George.
It is cognizance of that why he was chosen to lead the party.
Exactly. So we had that. And then we had Manning coming along. Remember when Robinson came first? Do you remember, as I said, 1986? Robinson came along, and he too was vilified. That's all. It's not that these guys did not have other virtues and assets that people did not recognize. That is always the case. But because they represented a group, and a group that was attempting to do something different from the vested interests of other groups, right? They became targets, right? So Kamala herself has been a target. Let's rush forward to the present and skip one or two figures. And Rowley, because he represented a particular kind of interest as well, has been targeted. The bad thing about this, to my mind, is what I have called in a column, the rise of King Kamala. has become a maximum leader.
Yes.
She has not, for example, held elections in her party.
She's a
2
leader.
years these elections are overdue. 2 years these elections, and she has not done that. Not only that, she started off with a coalition that depended on something called the Fight-About Accord. Done it entirely, because now it is Kamala 2015. And Kamala 2015 represents different parties, the UNC, the COP, the TOP. Can you imagine that if we assume that political parties have their own sovereignty, and if we assume that ultimately they are seeking to win government, these people have subsumed their sovereignty and in fact conceded their sovereignty to one person, and they want their followers to continue to follow them. That is the extent to which. Now, she said
sovereignty.
This is about her and her leadership, what she has done. Of course, one of the reasons for this, quite frankly, is that they have used her likability or favorability rating. It has been consistently good, and they have developed strategies around that likability. And let's say that's one of the factors. Remains, nonetheless, that a coalition, if it is a true coalition, has disparate parties who say that for a particular election they will come together on agreed matters.
I am still trying to digest your invoking of sovereignty, party sovereignty. It reminds me of a song called Blurred Lines. No, I am very clear and in agreement with you, Professor. I'm just saying that it is non-existent.
So we have clear indices of Kamala's maximum leadership. Now, what about Kamala gives her the kinds of insights and understandings and knowledge that the population can buy into? Because Kamala must be advised. And we have had she herself has said she has had problems with her advisors over time. So if you've had problems with your advisors over time, but you're taking over their advice and saying, it is really your plan, it's come out of your head, that's the impression you want to give. I have a plan. I think I have heard that so many times. It's nauseous now, but I think that's... Now, if it is that she has a plan in that way, then what she's asked us to believe is that we must attribute the generation of such ideas to her. Therefore, she has a kind of a wisdom that has been conferred on her from grounds that are not clear to me. Now, I'm saying that's maximum leadership. How can a coalition stand on that? Now, they have used that, and they have used the converse of that to say, okay, well, we started off with a negative likability, at least compared to hers. And they've said, well, let's attack him. But on what basis are they attacking him? On nebulous immorality issues. Nebulous. What? Rowley behaving like a trained man, whining on a girl. So, well, it's a normal thing, isn't it?
Yeah, but you take a shot. First of all, it's so ridiculous. You take a picture. A picture does not speak to what happened a second before, 2 seconds after.
Saying exactly. And there's a gap in between and so on that you have actually probably wiped out, erased. How can that become a big political issue? Then they use Landy that was dealt with by the courts for crying out loud. And you raise that. And then you talk about how he was the child of rape. I mean, how can that is the kind of nastiness that I'm talking.
Yes, indeed.
So I'm saying, and of course, the worst for me is his color.
And the angry black man was also quite disturbing. Yes.
Right. Now go back to slavery and go back to the early days of Trinidad and Tobago politics when color was a basis for employment and privilege. I don't know, you must remember.
Too clear.
Going to school with people of much lighter color than I and being dispreferred for jobs that they were getting And they did not have the qualifications that I did.
That is the throwback that's disturbing, along with the clear insensitivity and demonizing of religion to the extent that the last thing came out. And I was disquieted by that, but that's a different conversation. I do have to watch my time, Professor. In having you here, Professor Winford James is my guest. I must ask you to do the crystal balling thing for me. Tell me what you are seeing, why you think there is or is not going to be a change come Tuesday morning.
Not going to be a change?
Why do you think there is or there is not going to be? No. I will not ascribe what you have not said.
There will be a change. Now you must take everything I say against what I've said before.
Indeed.
But I think that there is going to be a change. And I'll give you some of the reasons why.
Please.
First of all, the polls. The polls have indicated that in statistical terms, PNM have a chance. A slim one, but a chance. Mm-hmm. They also say that there can be a tie and there can be a loss. That all those are possibilities, but the closeness of the race is what the polls is drawing attention to. Mm-hmm. And I'm saying in that context, the PNM has an edge. That is using the polls alone. And that is so because when you look, in fact, even though the UNC may win, and I use the UNC to refer to the coalition here now, even though the PNM may win, the point is they have come down from where they were in 2010. They are not going to be the all-conquering party that they were in 2010, 29. Why? Well, a number of reasons, one of which, of course, is the COP doesn't have the pull that it did in 2010. The COP, from the words of people who used to be at the center of operations, right? Set up itself, has lost its way, right? And therefore is not only a factor. So I am thinking all those seats, all of them, where COP contested, they're either going to lose them or win by very to PNM advantage for me. Yeah? We're talking about constituencies like St. Augustine, which is a safe UNC seat, so to speak, which the leader of the COP has been given. And even there, one is hoping that something will happen there. I'm talking plain here.
One is hoping, or the statistics bear that out? I see, okay.
The Prakash must really be punished for how he has presided over the exit of Winston Duker and Caroline Prasad Bechan and all the other leading lights of the COP, right? They have disappointed the intelligentsia that were the backbone of this party. You know what I'm saying here? Given the dramatically lowered profile of the COP, we are not going to see that wide margin that we did in 20.
Gotcha.
Right, that's one. Another point is that this government, indubitably, there's no doubt from anybody at all, not even from themselves, that there has been a lot of misgovernance and a lot of corruption. Now, I'm thinking...
You do me a favor?
That it will be
counterintuitive. In my other guest this year, because I thought that's what Nigel went to check, but I don't know. I want to end with this guest, but I want to be sure she's here.
They are still put back in the ball. It would appear to me, if that would happen, that I misunderstood the mind of the population. Maybe I should say the population in Trinidad, certainly not in Tobago. In Trinidad. I don't think I'm wrong, but it would be counterintuitive for all these things to have happened, and there's a long litany of misbehavior, and you're still winning. Yes? And if they were to win, one would have to wonder seriously what has happened to the PNM. It's appeal. But I do think the PNM has put in a strong showing in these hustings, in the campaign. I do think so. Well, I'm
Great to see you.
talking
Thank
here,
you
I'm
for being here.
discussing this thing, I'm having a discourse with you and with myself.
No, yes, yeah, I can hear that.
And one thing you get from me is honesty or observation. So here we go with a party that has wounded the soul of many who went across to support them. And maybe many who are in their base as well. But I leave their base for the time aside for the time being. The people who put them in power really are the migrants and the people who moved away from the fence, the floating vote, the swing vote. Mm-hmm. Now, the swing vote is not going to go their way. Most of it is not going to go their way at all. Is it going to go the PLM way? I think some of it is going to go. And some may simply not vote. And that is where the undecided thing comes in. They want to vote somebody else, but they do not see the PLM as attractive enough even now, even under new leadership. And so they will stay away. And that's part of your undecided right there for you. And I believe that all or most of the migrants from the PLM analyses, those factors, I should say, are the right factors, then it seems to me that the PLM will have a majority, a clear majority.
You are saying that come Tuesday morning, Professor Winford James is saying, come Tuesday morning there is going to be not just red and ready, but red and occupancy. Mm-hmm. Well, that is the question, and that is what we all consume this morning. We will have the answer for that on Monday night. I'm sure before 9 o'clock we will see what's going on with that. It's been, oh no, we have a lot of talking to do in other areas that I'll be inviting you back for. Professor Winford James, political scientist and commentator, also lecturer at the University of the West Indies. So kind of you to take the time to be with us this morning. Thank you for being candid, and thank you for the clarity you provided.